burning to avenge.
Beware, I live.
We have liftoff!
Beware, I live.
Burning to avenge.
Beware, I live.
Burning to avenge. Burning to avenge.
Beware, I live.
We have liftoff!
Burning to avenge. Burning to avenge.
The light is my strength. I'm here to help. I stand for the light. A sound plan. Certainly. The light is my strength.
Give me something to do!
Justice shall be done. I'm here to help. I stand for the light. The light is my strength. I stand for the light. Honor. Justice shall be done. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Feel my wrath. For my father. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor.
Betrayer of the light!
Of course. Certainly. Of course. Foul name. A sound plan.
Feel my wrath! Betrayer of the light!
Certainly. Foul name. A sound plan. For honor.
Betrayer of the light!
Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Certainly.
Justice!
Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan.
Our warriors have engaged.
Stand for honor. Of course. Foul. For honor. Of course.
Justice!
You are passing death. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. For my father.
Justice!
Of course.
For Lord Around!
For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course.
Our allies' town needs help.
The light is my strength. A sound plan. I'm here to help. Is there danger? Justice shall be done. Of course. I'm here to help. A sound plan. For honor. A
Our
sound
warriors
plan.
have engaged the enemy.
Certain.
Our allies' town needs
Of
help.
course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan.
Betrayer of the light!
Foul name. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan.
For Lord Around!
For honor.
Our
Of
allies'
course.
town needs help.
Certainly. A sound
Our warriors have engaged the
for
enemy.
honor.
Justice!
Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For my father, the king. The light. For honor. course. Certainly. For honor. Justice shall be done. I'm here to help. The light is my strength. A sound plan. I stand for the light. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. Justice shall be done. I stand for the light. The light is my strength. I'm here to help.
I bow to
The
your
light is
will.
my strength. Justice shall be done. The light is my strength.
Our
A
allies'
sound.
town
I
needs
stand
help.
for the light. Is there danger? The light is my strength. I stand for the light. Of course.
Our warriors
A
have
sound
engaged
plan.
the enemy.
Certainly. For honor. Of course. For
Our
honor.
allies' town needs
course.
help.
The light is my strength. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan.
Our allies' town needs
Of
help.
course. For honor. Feel my wrath. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. I'm here to help. For honor. Is there danger? Certainly. The light is my strength. Justice shall be done.
Our allies'
sound
town
plan.
needs help.
I'm here to help. The light is my strength.
Our allies' town needs help.
Certainly. Of course. I'm here to help. A sound plan. For honor. The light is my strength. A sound plan.
Our
Certainly.
allies' town needs
Of
help.
course. A sound plan. Justice. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Betrayer of the light. Certainly. For honor.
Our allies'
sound
town
plan.
needs help.
I stand for the light. Justice shall be done. Here to help. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Bow to me. For my father's sake. For honor. A sound plan. You are past me. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course.
Our allies' town needs
Certainly.
help.
Stand for the light. Of course. Justice shall be done. The light is my strength. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Feel my wrath. Bow to me. Betrayer of the light. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of course. For my father the king. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Is there danger? Certainly. A sound plan. Justice shall be done. The light is my strength. For honor. Certainly. Betrayer of the light. Of course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Is there danger? Are you threatening me? The light is my strength. Justice shall be done. Of course. I'm here to help.
Our allies' town needs help.
Is there danger? For honor. Of course. For honor. Of course. For honor. Feel my wrath.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
Justice shall be done. Justice. A sound plan. Bow.
Killing spree.
Justice shall be done. I stand for the light. Certainly. Of course. Light is my
Our
strength.
allies' town needs
A
help.
sound plan. For honor. Of course. Is there danger? Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Of course.
Our allies' town needs
Certainly.
help.
I'm here to stand for the light. The light is my strength. For honor. Of course. I stand for the light. A sound plan.
Our
Certainly.
allies' town needs help.
You are past
For honor.
betrayer of light.
A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan.
Justice has come.
Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For Lord Iran.
Killing spree.
Of course.
Double kill.
A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Foul. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Feel my wrath. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan.
Welcome to our
Is there
village.
danger? Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Justice shall be done. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor.
You are past redemption.
Our warriors
course.
have engaged the
A
enemy.
sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For Lord Iran. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly.
Justice has come.
Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly.
Our warriors have
Here
engaged
to
the
help.
enemy.
You are past redemption.
For honor.
Killing spree.
For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. Certainly. Of course. A sound. I stand for the light. Of course. Certainly. Justice shall be done. A sound plan.
Feel my wrath.
For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course.
For my father, the king.
For honor. Certainly. light is my strength. For honor. Certainly. For honor. Of course. For honor. Of course. Certainly.
Feel my wrath.
A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor.
Hello.
Is there danger? Justice shall be done. Is there danger? Of course. I'm here to help. Certainly. Stand.
Killing spree.
Your man. Our allies' town needs help.
A
Dominating.
sound plan.
Double kill.
I stand for the light. I'm here to help. For honor. Of course.
Betrayer of light.
Certainly. Found. Of course. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. Is there danger? Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. I stand for the light.
Justice is come.
Of course. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course.
You are past redemption.
Certainly. Is there danger? A sound plan. Certainly. The light is my strength. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. I'm here to help.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
I stand for the light. Justice shall be done.
Betrayer of light.
A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Of course. Is there danger? Done.
Take your time.
I'm here to help. A sound plan. Certainly. I stand for honor. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For my father, the king. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Justice shall be done. Of course.
Our allies' town needs
Is
help.
there danger?
What?
Greetings.
Justice shall be done. For honor. A sound plan. I'm here to help.
Our allies' town
Of course.
needs help.
Double kill.
A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Justice shall be done. Certainly.
Betrayer of the light.
A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan.
What?
The light is your strength. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For my father, the king. For honor. Certainly.
Aye.
Is there danger? For honor.
You are past redemption.
Certainly. For honor. Justice shall be done. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. For Lord
Double kill.
Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Justice shall be done. Of course. Certainly. Of course. I'm here to help. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. The light is my strength. What? Justice shall be done. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. I stand for the light. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. Justice is done. For honor. A sound plan. For my father, the king. I'm here to help. Is there danger? For honor. The light is my strength. Is there danger? The light is my strength. Justice shall be done. Certainly.
Our warriors
sound.
have engaged the enemy.
The light is my strength. Justice shall be done. For honor. Is there danger? I'm here to help. Of course. The light is my strength. Justice shall be. I'm here to help. For honor. Certainly.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
Certainly. Of course. For honor. I stand for the light. A sound plan. Certainly.
Unstoppable.
Your
A
master.
sound plan. For honor. Justice shall be done. Certainly. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. I'm here to help. I stand for the light. Is there danger? I'm here to help. Is there danger? A sound plan. Certainly. I stand for the light. The light is my strength. A sound plan. I'm here to help. For honor. Of course. Certainly. Justice shall be done. Certainly. Is there danger? A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor.
Are you threatening me?
Justice shall be done. Of course. For honor. Certainly. The light is my strength. A sound. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. I stand for the light. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Of
Our
course.
allies' town is
Sound
lost.
plan. Certainly. Of course.
Feel my wrath.
A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A sound plan. sound plan. For honor. Certainly. A
Double
sound
kill.
for honor.
Wicked
Sound
sick.
plan. For honor. Justice shall be done. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. I'm here to help. For honor. Of course. Certainly. Justice. A sound plan. For honor.
Betrayer of the light.
Of course. For my father, the king. Certainly. Of course.
Feel my wrath.
Certainly. Foul. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. Of course.
Full speed ahead!
Our allies' town needs help.
Certainly.
Double kill.
Stand for the light. Justice shall be done. I'm here to help.
Are you threatening me?
Is there danger? I'm here to help. I stand for the light.
What?
I stand for the light. The light is my strength. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. Certainly. Justice shall be done. I stand for the light. For honor. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. I'm here to help. A sound plan. Feel my wrath. For honor. A sound plan. A sound plan. Certainly. Of course. A sound plan. For honor. Of course.
You are past me.
Certainly. A sound plan.
Killing spree.
For honor. Of course. Certainly. Is there danger? Of course. Certainly. A sound plan. Of course. For honor. A sound plan. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Here to help. For honor. A sound plan. Certainly. A sound plan. Certainly. For honor. Of course. A sound plan. Of course. Certainly. Bound. For my father. sound plan. Of course, a sound plan. For honor. Certainly.
Killing spree. Killing spree.
Of course. For honor.
Nigga, double kill.
Is there danger?
Is my aid required?
Are you threatening
Light is my strength. Of course. For honor. Of course. Is there danger? Justice shall be done. The light is my strength.